Stop treating rejection as a wound. In the clinical terminal of the architect, social rejection is a systemic validation protocol. Look at the animal world. When a pack of wolves encounters an anomaly, a unit that is too fast, too cold, or too focused, the first reflex of the mediocre majority is expulsion. They don't hate the anomaly because it's bad. They hate it because it makes their average look like failure. You have been raised on the nice guy program that tells you to fit in and be likable. The truth? If the herd likes you, you are biomass. If the herd rejects you, you are a threat. Understand the status of the outcast. In the social grid of 2026, rejection is a high-resolution signal. It tells you exactly where the systemic boundaries are. Every time the mediocre try to shame you, mock you, or exclude you, they are essentially identifying the predator. They are pointing their fingers at the unit they cannot control. Rejection isn't a sign of your weakness. It's a sign of their insecurity. The herd needs everyone to stay in the safety zone of mediocrity, so they don't have to face the vacuum of their own existence. Your rejection is your license to extract. Next, we audit the biology of the barrier. Why is being rejected the most effective state for large-scale impact? Because it creates emotional superconductivity. When you are part of the herd, you have to check in with their feelings. You have to pay the social tax of compliance. But when you are rejected, the tax is liquidated. You are free. You no longer owe the simulation an explanation. The tactical outcast doesn't waste energy on belonging. He spends 100% of his neural resource on execution. He rules from the periphery because the periphery is the only place where the 450 strike logic can operate without friction. Why is social rejection the ultimate marketing hook for a 5 million view empire? Because the masses are secretly obsessed with what they cannot have. They reject the independent unit in public, but they study it in private. They watch your videos with a mixture of fear and envy because you represent the exit route they were too cowardly to take. Your outcast status is your unique value proposition. You aren't competing for their love. You are occupying their curiosity. By being the rejected one, you become the anomaly that the algorithm cannot ignore. You are the glitch that they are programmed to watch. Why is the law of rejection the only way to reach the summit of extraction? Because the summit is a single occupancy zone. You cannot take the herd with you to the top. The herd is heavy, slow, and demands safety. By rejecting you early, the system is doing you a tactical favor. It is shedding the weight for you. It is forcing you to build your own monolith instead of helping them repair their crumbling roof. You have turned your loneliness into a high-resolution command center. You don't need the grid. You harvest it from the outside. You are the ghost that rules the simulation while the users are still arguing about the rules. The screen is glowing. The room is silent. You are feeling the genetics of rejection being integrated to your core logic. You are looking at your social exile and seeing it as tactical superiority. You are feeling a cold, clinical sense of operational autonomy. The nice guy who wanted to belong is being liquidated. The hunter who communicates through the displacement of the grid is at the controls. Your 450 strikes are the steps of the outcast. The 5 million views are the occupation of the void. The audit of your value is closed. We are moving from the genetics to the protocol of the predatory side. Stop explaining yourself a noise. In the clinical terminal of the architect, your silence is a high-frequency weapon. Look at the predator in the tall grass. It doesn't growl to show its presence. It doesn't argue with the prey about its right to hunt. It is a silent, kinetic event. You have been raised on the nice guy program that tells you to speak your truth and seek closure. The truth? Closure is a resource drain. Every word you use to justify your existence to the mediocre is a neural gift you are giving to your enemies. The architect performs a total vocal liquidation the moment the herd rejects him. Understand the status of the vacuum. In the social grid of 2026, everyone is loud. Everyone is posting, reacting, and venting. This is status friction. But the unit that is rejected and stays silent creates a neural glitch in the herd. They expect you to be angry. They expect you to be sad. When you provide nothing, you force them to look into the vacuum of their own insecurity. Your silence is a mirror of the void. By refusing to engage in the social feedback loop, you are effectively de-indexing their power over you. You are ruling the 5 million view empire from the frequency of the shadow. Next, we audit the architecture of the ghost. Why is predatory silence so lethal for large-scale impact? Because it creates infinite mystery. The masses are hardwired to categorize everything they see. If they can categorize you, they can control you. But you can't categorize silence. By withdrawing your identity from the social info feed, you become an anomaly. You aren't marketing your vision. You are installing it through the gaps in their perception. Every 8-second video with 100% entry is a silent command to their subconscious. You don't ask for their focus. You suction it into your void. Why is silence the only way to sustain the 450 strike daily intent? Because communication is biological resistance. If you have to talk, you have to think about the audience. If you have to think about the audience, you are syncing with their lower frequency. The architect stays in the zero-G balance of his own laboratory. He doesn't talk to the 5 million. He broadcasts into them. He treats the grid like a terminal that only accepts code, not conversations. You are currently leaking energy by caring about the comments. The hunter ignores the echo. He only focuses on the impact of the next strike. Why is the law of silence the only one that builds the monolith? Because the monolith is made of concentrated. You cannot build it if you are constantly dissipating your energy through social noise. The more they reject you, the more silent you must become. This isn't shyness. This is strategic stealth. You are building your empire in the dead zone where the herd's marauders cannot track you. You are the ghost that owns the simulation while the users are still fighting for likes. Your silence is your security protocol. It ensures that when you finally speak through your results, the world has no choice but to obey the frequency. The screen is glowing. The room is silent. You are feeling the predatory silence protocol, locking into your long-term strategy. You are looking at the social noise and seeing it as systemic garbage. You are feeling a cold, clinical sense of invisible dominance. The nice guy who wanted to be heard is being liquidated. The hunter who communicates through the displacement of the reality is at the controls. Your 450 strikes are the steps of the phantom. The 5 million views are the result of the vacuum. The audit of your voice closed. We are moving from the silence to the protocol of the sovereign isolation. Stop fearing the empty room. In the clinical terminal of the architect, your isolation is a strategic resource center. Look at the predator in the Arctic waste. It doesn't miss the warmth of the herd. It uses the cold to preserve its energy and the silence to hear the faintest vibration of its target. It has turned its exile into a dominance zone. You have been raised on the nice guy program that tells you to be social and stay connected. The truth? Connection is a high latency tax. Every social obligation is a neural parasite that feeds on your focus. The architect performs a total sensory extraction once the herd has rejected him. Understand the status of the outcast sovereign. In the social grid of 2026, loneliness is just a data error. It is the feeling of a user who has lost his connection to the simulated social support. But for the architect, there is no loneliness. There is only operational purity. By accepting your exile, you have gained total autonomy. You no longer have to sync your frequency with the mediocre. You don't have to dilute your 450 strike intent to be relatable. You are a closed system. Your isolation is the firewall that ensures your 5 million view empire is built on raw power, not social compromise. Next, we audit the architecture of the monolith. Why is sovereign isolation the only way to reach the summit of extraction? Because the center of the herd is a gravity well of failure. In the middle, you are surrounded by marauders and useful idiots who will drag you down the moment you start to rise. But the periphery, the exile zone, is where the escape velocity is possible. While the herd is busy judging your rejection, you are building the monolith. You are using the exile as a time compression chamber. Every hour they spend socializing, you spend executing. You have turned their rejection into your unfair advantage. Why is isolation the only way to sustain the 450 strike daily barrage? Because social friction is biological fatigue. If you have to perform a personality for the herd, you are wasting your ATP. But in the sovereign void, there is no performance. There is only function. The architect treats his laboratory as a zero-G environment. He has removed the dust of other people's opinions so his strikes can land with 100% precision. You aren't alone. You are concentrated. The 5 million people who will watch your content won't see a man. They will see a systemic force that was forged in the silence of his own exile. Why is the law of the exile the only one that wins the simulation? Because the simulation is designed to harvest the visible. By being isolated and rejected, you become invisible to the harvest. You are the ghost that is building a 43 million income reality while the users are still arguing about the fairness of the. Your exile is your strategic step. It ensures that when you finally impact the grid with your 5 million, the world has no choice but to submit the result. You have turned your social debt your digital resurrection. You are the only unit that is functionally superior because you are the only one who has left the simulation to control. The screen is glowing. The room is silent. You are feeling the sovereign isolation protocol, deleting the social dependencies from your prefrontal cortex. You are looking at your exile and seeing it as a tactile fortress. You are feeling a cold, clinical sense of operational autonomy. The nice guy who was afraid to be alone is being liquidated. The hunter who communicates the override of the grid is at the control. Your 450 strikes are the commands of the fortress. The 5 million views are the occupation of the void. The audit of your connections is closed. We are moving from the isolation to the final protocol of the sovereign. The audit is complete. The social leash is incinerated. Now, the architect executes the final stage, the sovereign. Most men, when they gain 5 million views, they get soft. They start caring about their brand. They start moderating their truth to please the very herd that rejected them. They return to the cage for a life. But the architect knows that the highest form of power is to rule with absolute indifference to the herd's approval. Your rejection is the neural and strategic force field that makes your cold logic permanent. You aren't part of the world anymore. You are the ghost in the grid who rewrites its destiny. Think about the final extraction of the social cell. Why does the herd fear the one they cast out? Because the outcast is the only unit that is truly free. If they can't unperson you through rejection, then their social contract is exposed as a mutual suicide pact. The herd is terrified of your sovereign rejection because it is a mirror of the void. In a world of 2026 where everyone is screaming for acceptance and community, the architect is the only solid object. By ruling through exile, he has become the invisible administrator of their reality. He doesn't influence the 5 million people. He harvests their focus as a systemic tribute to his own coldness. Understand understand the status of the absolute outsider. In the social grid of 2026, everything connected is vulnerable. Your reputation is a target. Your legacy is a target. But rejection is stealth. By staying in the tactical void, you have achieved systemic escape velocity. You are moving too fast for the marauders to label or cancel. You are currently renting your worth from the herd's feedback. The sovereign owns his worth in the vacuum. Your 5 million view success is the proof of your autonomy property. You have turned your exile into a high-resolution command center. You are the only unit that is functionally superior because you are the only one who isn't distracted by the need to be loved. Next, we audit the end of the social simulation. Why is the sovereign the only way to protect the monolith? Because the world is currently a focus drain machine. If you have obligations to the pack, you have vulnerabilities. But if you are rejected, you have absolute autonomy. You can execute the 450 strike barrage without a single internal conflict. You can manage your global empire from the shadow ground while the world thinks you are a myth. You have successfully decoupled your mind from the herd's biology. You are the operator's code reality while the herd is still. Here is the viral ultimatum. The primal law of rejection is now fully agreed to your map. You have the genetics, the size, the isolation. You are no longer a victim. You are the chief executive sovereign voice. Take this protocol and inject in the minds of the louds who are still trying along. Share this with the mass terror. Send this to the ones still of us complying, not to help them. The architect doesn't empathize, but to trigger the heart. We are building an empire of sovereign who recognize the law 400 strikes and the way every share is a social, every say is a vow of tact. Look at the glowing screen. The room is silent. Are the apps sovereign? The nice guy is a ghost in a jar. The architect is the ruler. Your 450 strikes are the commands of the code. The 5 million views are the occupation of the grid. You have turned your exile into the foundation of your throne. The audit of the social is closed. The laboratory is sterile. The reign of the sovereign has begun. System check. 100% rejection. Sovereignty. Targeting. Global frequency capture. Status. I am the rejection. I am the law. I am the architect. Stop being a unit. Become the architect that the system cannot track. The forest is quiet. The architect is ruling. Be the apex or stay the biomass. The transition is complete. The reign is executed. Rule with autonomy.